with Catalyst Life Coaching. Let's talk about grief. If your first thought was, I haven't lost anyone close to me, I invite you to think again about other types of losses that you've experienced. Grief and mourning apply to other losses in our lives, besides losing loved ones to death. This is sometimes referred to as disenfranchised grief, which is generally defined as grief you feel you aren't allowed to mourn because the loss isn't clear or understood by others. These types of losses are often hard to identify because of the lack of a death, but grief can be what is causing you struggle in other areas of your life. We'll talk about symptoms of grief in just a minute, but first let's talk about types of loss that bring on grief and mourning. Have you made a life-changing transition, moved, or changed careers or jobs? When that happened, you likely lost friends and routines, maybe events or places you loved about where you worked or lived. Did a medical condition force you to give up a dream you had? Have you been unable to have children or the number of children that you wanted? If you've experienced abuse, did you lose your innocence too early, or were you even allowed to experience a childhood? Losing trust in others, especially if they were family members, may play a key role in your behaviors or patterns in your life that have you feeling like you're crazy or not like other people. Experiences like infertility, divorce, loss of a job, chronic pain, midlife crisis, whether it's yours or someone else's, or any other thing that prevents you from doing or having what was important to you, can change your perspective. These losses sidetrack your hopes and your dreams. The visions that you had for a bright future hadn't turned out like you planned. You may have lost someone to dementia or Alzheimer's, but they haven't passed away. The loss of the old personality and relationship may have left you sad and confused. You can experience a loss of security and stability that overshadows your happiness and peace. And this may be a factor in a divorce or a job loss that takes away the security you've always felt. The loss of mobility takes away your feeling of independence. And that's a huge loss for a lot of us. You could experience a loss when your house burns down, or a natural disaster hits your city, or you're a victim of a crime. These things all affect your security and your peace. Fear and anger may override the grief, making it hard to recognize it as grief. And some refer to divorce as the living death. Even if the divorce was your decision, a loss has occurred and will affect you until you reach a new level of equilibrium. There will be changes in relationships, finances, family get-togethers, and these things often leave us confused, angry, and continuing interactions with your former loved one, especially if you have children, and his or her family and the friends you may have shared, can be awkward and uncomfortable as the relationship is forced into a change. I hope you can see from these examples how grief and loss can be having an impact on your life, and possibly your sense of self and what's normal for you. Now let's talk about symptoms of loss. First, you could be experiencing physical symptoms, such as shortness of breath, tightness in your chest, or you could be feeling hollow, completely empty inside. You could be experiencing changes in the appetite, a loss of appetite, or eating all kinds of comfort foods that you don't normally like. Lack of energy or that persists even after you've had a good night's sleep, or even headaches or any other health issues that there's no known cause for. Or you could be experiencing behavioral symptoms. These are things like inability to maintain normal daily activity, inability to make decisions, lack of motivation, just not feeling like doing it, being obsessed with the cause or the circumstances of the loss, or feeling restless or unable to focus, being forgetful or distracted, or excessively avoiding or seeking out places or things that remind you of your loss. You could be experiencing emotional symptoms as well, things like guilt. You could feel in shock. You could be numb. You could be experiencing anxiety or panic. You could be intensely sad, or you could feel helpless or powerless, or you could feel detached or indifferent in a way that you haven't felt before. You could feel angry. You could be lonely. Or finally, you could be struggling with thought pattern symptoms such as denial or being disorganized in your thinking. You may be having dreams about death or loss, unable to concentrate, or yearning again for good times. If you have any of these symptoms and you hadn't considered they are the result of losses that are not related to a death, I hope you're starting to see that you could be experiencing grief. Like and follow, and in the next session, I'll talk about what you can do to help yourself make your way through the process of grief. Check out my website, joincatalyzedcoaching.com.